So I'm not trying to pick on anybody. Do we have any first-time hikers? Never done a hike before.
How's that? You need to volunteer?
I mean, you have your backyard and everything, but you know, it's like kind of like we kind of just want to know like who we're talking to. Like everyone has different experiences. You guys might know something about this whole thing. There's many different opinions as there are people inside this room. So if you want to speak up and tell us we're wrong about something, I'd love to hear it. Yeah. Definitely. But for first-time hikers, we want to cover the bases that you can use the information we provide here on a variety of sports or hobbies. So you can essentially take this and go backpacking with your entire household on your back across the country to just safely viewing your favorite spots at some destination that you've dreamt of but maybe have never seen. Those can be just as dangerous as your backyard, a hike, 20 minutes away that you see every day of the week. They change overnight. So does anyone have any questions or any topics that they're hoping to have covered during this class? Okay, well, if we start doing something you don't like, yell at us. But we're gonna try and cover just about anything you want to know to apply to a variety of sports.
All right, well, my name's Colby, by the way. Hi, everybody.
Hi,
this is backpacking. I'm trying to make this for every level. Kind of really like Landon was saying, just spread all sports. All this is usable in the outdoors, period. Not necessarily just for backpacking, but just good outdoor etiquette, good things to know. This is not an absolute guide. This is not the way to do it. This is a way to do it. There are tons of schools of thought in all the outdoors. We're just giving you kind of our perspective, kind of trying to teach you a few things that'll help you on your journey. The gear checklist we handed out, we're going to go over that in detail, what kind of stuff we offer here, and it definitely gives you good perspective to see what you're going to need for some serious backpacking. Well, first off, let's go ahead and start with safety. Safety first, right? First aid is the number one thing. First aid is really personal. If you're prone to headaches, you're going to want ibuprofen, your headache medicine of choice. EpiPens if you're allergic to bees and wasps. We're looking at iodine, alcohol pads, some kind of an antiseptic for an emergency situation. Benadryl, sunscreen is a must. Might not think you need it, but if you're all alone, that's when it's the most crucial. Chapstick, bug spray, emergency water tablets. Mainly what we're trying to show you guys is the safety involved in planning an excursion by yourself.
It's not easy for us to stand up here and talk to you about getting hurt out in the woods.
Right.
That's not a fun topic that anyone wants to listen to, but it takes up very little weight inside your bag, very little room, and you'd rather have it than not. I bring athletic tape, a bottle of saline solution with me. Just about everywhere I go, my brother, he's in wilderness search and rescue. He has pounds and pounds of this stuff in his car at any time. He's the guy that you would to show up whenever something went wrong, because I guarantee you he has something.
Can't hear you very good back here. Sorry, you guys.
Don't worry about that.
I just can't hear you.
We'll just talk louder. Is this better?
That's better.
That's better.
Yes.
Okay.
What do you say?
So guys, this is just an example. This is super light. I think I've got a weight on this. This is right at a pound. But, I mean, there's over 50 items in this. It's Band-Aids. This is a lot of stuff that you would need. Really lightweight. Doesn't take up a lot of room. But, it's essential if you don't have it.
You can make your own. These come pretty well ready with a variety of things that just anybody might need and use. A few things you can add to it that aren't necessarily in there. A suture kit, just needle and thread to use on your socks for while you're getting blisters.
Yeah.
Does anyone have big
Rambo.
blister problems? Soft skin? Any of y'all tender-footed, tender hands?
He's a little tender.
A little tender? Okay. What do you use for that?
He's BSing you.
Salt, sweat, and salt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, sir? What do you use for blisters? You're out hiking.
Trying to prevent them, and I'd wear pantyhose.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
That's a good option. Yeah.
Liquid skin.
Um,
Used to do that.
I believe you.
There's a lot of stuff out there for blister care.
Liquid
Mole,
skin.
moleskin's
Mole
awesome.
skin.
Yeah. Super glue in a tight spot will, prevent a blister. Feet are like essential. Just like Forrest Gump, take care of your feet. Yeah, if you feel like you're getting a blister, it's probably too late, but go ahead and treat it. Yeah, don't play around with the feet.
That's one of the MIPs.
All right, so we're gonna move on to planning. This is again lumped in with safety. Knowing where you're going and knowing everything about where you are will save you a lot of headache in the long run. Having a compass and knowing how to use it, it will help you out in a tight spot. Maps are essential, so yeah, if you're not familiar with that, get more familiar with using a compass. We'll have one on display in a little bit, just to kind of let you get a hands-on feel. But yeah, so knowing your ability level kind of rolls in with that. If you're planning on doing 150 miles and you've never backpacked before, it's probably gonna be a lot to take on.
Solo hikes are perfectly acceptable. It's not a big deal to go hiking for days by yourself or just an evening. And it's not necessarily any easier to just plan for yourself than it is to plan for a group of people. Sure, we might be each taking care of ourselves, but there's no need for us to bring multiples of the same thing and weigh ourselves down and slow the whole hike down when I have to now collaborate with you. What do you have that I don't have? What do I have that you're also planning on bringing when we can just limit it to one? There's always that.
So yeah, I mean, know what you're capable of. Go practice close by. Load your pack up, even if you're not going out all night or overnight. Load your pack up, see what you can do with it. When you hit 4 miles, you might feel like you're dying, and it's a lot better to be prepared for that than to just jump on in.
All of a sudden, tomorrow's here, you've got to do another 4 miles again this day.
Absolutely.
And you're like, oh, I didn't know it would be like this, hiking, this elevation that I haven't seen before. I'm from Western Kentucky. We don't have mountains here.
Right.
So
if you're planning on doing, let's say, a 15-mile hike for 2 days, that's going to be 7 miles a day, roughly. See if you can do 7 miles in a day. It's not all that you think it is right off the bat. So yeah, I mean, knowing yourself and trusting your ability. Conditioning is a big thing. Do some cardio. Get used to exerting yourself. Carrying your own weight is a lot more strenuous than you assume. You don't think about 30 pounds being a lot, but when you're stuck with it, and when that's on your back all the time, then you've got to be used to that. So yeah, you might be able to hike 10 miles without anything, but you can almost cut that in half if you're not properly conditioned for it. So, do your conditioning. Break in your gear. This is one of my favorite things. If you buy a pair of boots, break them in. That blisters happen to everybody at some point or another. No one's immune. But, breaking in your gear, being used to, putting some distance under your feet. Using your pack, knowing how your pack carries, knowing where you're going to get tired, knowing where your issue spots are going to be before they happen. That'll help you along the way. And know how to set up your equipment. It is one thing to buy a $500 tent. It is entirely different to know how to set that up when you've got to set it up. A good form of readiness is setting that tent up. Learn how to set your tent up waterproof. I'm going to show a little demonstration right over here about setting up waterproof. You don't think about it a lot, but if you're in the rain, you need to know. Hypothermia is a real risk. It just takes being wet and some wind hitting you, and you can become hypothermic really quick.
Something like how tall your footer is on your tent, whether you've got a 4-inch or a 6-inch footer on your tent. Essentially, the bottom is waterproof as well. And if you didn't pick out your camp spot right, you didn't brush leaves to the side and look and see a gravel bed, and you're like, oh, if it rains in the middle of the night, all of a sudden I might wake up and I'm floating in a river. And a waterproof footer, you can tell exactly where the seams are. It'll start leaking into your tent from the bottom. So you don't want to get wet in the middle of the night and have to reset up your tent, wake up the next morning not well rested. These are things that, you need to either watch some YouTube tutorials on the gear that you buy or just come and ask us questions. We might have sold it before. We might own it ourselves. Several of the gear items we have up here are used by the military. Any military boys out here, y'all get the discount? So we do that. We do that. And a lot of this stuff kind of that we're covering, it doesn't sound like safety. You're thinking safety is in like, oh, bring a light, bring your first aid kit. But from the experience, from getting somewhat acquainted, you can never be comfortable in all situations with backpacking or with just like living off the terrain. It's not going to happen, and that's part of the fun of it. So a first timer is just as subjected to the elements as someone who has gotten years and years of experience. But we're telling you this stuff as in know your equipment before you get out there, know the routes, the access routes, the shortest distance back to civilization, because once you do it a couple times, you're going to be like, oh, those are things I should have planned for. You're never going to be able to plan for it all. So just, count for that.
Planning the better though.
Certain things you might want to bring 2 of. Sort of like I was saying earlier, your most important personnel. Your feet, super huge right there. Your hands, you got to use those, and they need to stay available. You might need just like a piece of twine this long could be so important to you. For cutting it off and using to just like tie something to have your hands free during a certain situation while you're setting up camp, cooking. Having your hands free just keeps you from getting hurt. So having your hands free, you can also use that same twine. You can get lost 50 feet away from your campsite. And all of a sudden your back is laying at your tent and you've got all your gear sitting inside of that. Your tent site's set up, you've got a fire going already, and the wind started blowing, the sun went down while you were like, oh, I'm just gonna go to this one spot. And then now you're turned around backwards, your compass isn't in your pocket, your phone isn't in your pocket. You wake up in the middle of the night and a bear tore apart your pack,
right,
and your phone was in your pack, and now you can't call someone to be like, hey, I'm 2 days out and all my food's gone.
Brings up a really good point.
No one's gonna
most people that get lost on the trail,
it's
it's less than 100 feet from the trail. When push comes to shove, it's easy to get lost. So knowing your orientation, knowing where you're at, and knowing how to get back to where you're at. We'll kind of touch on safety a little bit more.
The same stuff with that.
But brings us on to our next point. Let somebody know where you're going.
It's the law.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Who do you let know? Anybody? You passed right by them on your way to the trailhead. The forestry service. They make you.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there will be signs once you get to the trail, like call us a week before your trip's planned, and then all of a sudden you're there and you're like, oops, I didn't do that.
Right.
I've been there myself. A lot of national parks will have this to where they make you tell them where you're parking, how long you'll be gone, where you're going, and when you'll be back. So the first day that you're not back at your vehicle, maybe you went on a scenic route to see an extra waterfall, and they'll try and contact you, and they'll contact your emergency numbers within that first 24 hours. But it's important that someone's looking for you. People get lost in Dixon Springs. That's 30 minutes from here, and bikers go up there all the time. Trails change overnight. All of a sudden, a water wash off that goes straight down a hill from some water that was pooled up on a poorly made trail looks like the trail. And you follow that for 30 feet, and it's got several split offs, and all of a sudden you're backwards. And you're sitting here thinking, like, which way did I go? A compass at this point in time helps you if it's dark and you can't see the sun, and you've got a large tree overhang, or if it's midday and you can't tell which way the sun's rising or setting. It's no more dangerous to be out in the Rockies, the Smokies, you know, any of your favorite locations than just somewhere you know, like the back of your hand, that you go to all the time. I've spent hours and hours in Dixon mountain biking. I love it. Big rocks, beautiful bluffs. And I've been lost twice there for about 2 hours each time. And trails that I probably would know if I knew where I was at, but it's like a big spiderweb mesh network, and all of a sudden you're on a deer path, and you're like, let's pretend, let's hope for the best. I was with a group of people, a girl was with us, and it was kind of like someone was always in charge, even if they didn't really know what they were doing. It's kind of up to you whether you want to take that position of leadership on a trail when things start going wrong. But even if you don't know what you're doing, you can still make the best of it, because I wouldn't be standing here right now if that didn't happen.
Real quick, we're going to pass out some sample foods. We're going to start with Bridgeford ready-to-eat meals. Basically, there's no cooking required or anything. You can't heat them up in boiling water inside the pouch if you want. But they're ready to go just right out the pouch, like 3 year shelf life on them. I'm going to start passing different samples around.
So again, let somebody know where you're going. Let them know the area with a copy of the map. Whatever you've got to do, just let them know kind of where you're going to be. Give them an ETA, estimated time of arrival. You know, if 2 days passes and they don't hear from you, they know you should have arrived at some point. You know, if you told them. Sign all trail logs you see. You know, it might seem redundant, it might seem pointless. Like, nobody I know is going to be here, but that is a good record of you being at a point. Sign and date it to let people know, yes, I was here. And it's cool to look back at, you know, if you ever come back. Check in with the ranger station, like Landon said. Yeah, if you're in a national park, most of the time there's ranger stations around. Rangers have a ton of other advice, you know. If there's been bear sightings, they're going to let you know. You know, if there's stuff to worry about, they're going to have a better outlook on that area than you probably are.
You can get in contact with them anytime you have any questions. If you're bringing a radio, something like a satellite watch, like a regular watch, I definitely recommend, because you're hiking, you don't want to be digging and turning your phone on and off, trying to find out what time it is.
That brings me to my next point, GPS. Yes, it's expensive, but you know, if you're planning on doing stuff by yourself, it's almost essential.
There's a few brands we'll recommend.
There's a brand called Spot Tracker. It's an expensive program, but you basically have a key fob that has an emergency button. That's basically it. Other than that, it kind of sends out blips of where you've been. So somebody can watch you, watch where you're going, know that you're moving along at a safe pace, and if stuff does happen, if something goes wrong, you've got a button and it sends your absolute location so you can be found.
And something like that's perfect for someone like me. I don't want to be listening to the daily weather report and hear them calling for rain in my area, but they do make them that do that as well. That'll let you know any sort of emergency that's going on in your area. Places out west that are very arid, like worrying about forest fires.
Yeah.
You can be surrounded by fire and just
So-
due to the wind.
This transitions nicely into my next point. Research.
You can buy them specifically.
The spot
do not
tracker?
have-
Yeah.
You can turn the weather feature off.
You can, basically there's two models of spot tracker that I'm aware of. One of them is extremely basic. It has got an emergency button and nothing else. The other one does have a GPS location. You can actually see where you're at on it. And it does have a weather feature. It's got an altimeter on it. A lot of other small features. They are expensive though. But, you know, if you're planning on being alone,
And if you're doing the
It's
flat
worth it.
version, you can turn it off.
but yeah, this brings me to my next point, research. Do your homework on where you're going. Know the wildlife, know the risk involved in the area you're gonna be in.
Don't scare yourself with statistics.
Yeah. But around here, poison ivy's everywhere, poison oak. Ticks are crazy. Last year was a horrible year for ticks.
They're already out now.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're already out.
Mosquitoes, like, know how to prepare for those things. If you're going to be somewhere where bears are, you need to be prepared for that. Most places that have bears require you to hang a bear bag. That is hanging your food at least 25 feet above the ground, because bears will be around. And that's no joke. A bear will take you with your tent. Snakes are a big thing around here. Water moccasins, copperheads. So yeah, it's important to know, the risk of where you're going, to know how to prepare for it. And the next thing would be weather and, knowing what time of year it is, what do I need to pack, what do I need to prepare for, clothing-wise, do I need to be ready for rain? Those things are essential. If you're stuck without the right equipment, then it can become life-threatening really quick, quicker than you realize.
More than that, you're just out there to have fun. And if something's impeding you from having a good time, know yourself, know how you want to treat yourself, how luxurious you like to live in your day-to-day life. You can live even more luxuriously on the trails. You can eat the better steaks. You can, watch the better views, actually wake up to see the sunrise once in a blue moon. But sort of like the preparation of this goes into having a good time. If you want to really protect yourself from the elements out there, that's an option you have. Just because you are backpacking on a trail, you don't have to constantly be subjected to the elements. You can really separate yourself from nature, being totally surrounded by it, if you want to. And for just a moment, that can be exactly what you need. So speaking as far as luxuries and how you want to camp, whether you're a minimalist camper or if you're typically man, I'm just going out to cook a nice steak for the night, you can. So you guys have seen those little ground wasps, they're red and black, and they just walk along, they look like a big fat ant, and they're just doing their thing. If you want to cover the ground underneath you with a tarp that you can see anything moving on it, put a chair on top of that, put a bug screen around it, and separate yourself entirely from all the elements, that's an option you have. And then different things like trail markers can be used out of that same equipment. A lot of these items that you'll be using just for luxury can actually come in very useful a bug mesh can be used to catch fish. Your reflective tarp can be used to save you in the case of a forest fire because they burn at like 1,000 degrees. So you bury yourself in a stream with this Mylar blanket. It's just a $10 piece. It's nothing, but like whenever you're trying to get away from a bug, it's perfect. And you can tear off little pieces of it. They're reflective. You'll see them with your light. You can use them as trail markers whenever you're setting up your campsite, whenever you're getting off the trail intentionally to see a site, to go in some backwoods style camping that's not on the planned route. You see something you want to go see, you're not sure how to get back to your trail. Before you're worried is when you start making the preparations for that. And Hansel and Gretel did it perfectly. They just unfortunately used something that birds like to eat. But that is the formula for finding your way back. Breadcrumbs.
So my next point would be, again on research, become familiar with your gear. I call it the RDR. It's a repeatable departure routine. So if you are doing the same thing, you're packing up the same way every time, you don't miss steps. You don't leave anything behind. You don't miss out on something that's essential. You have only what's on your back for this whole experience. So knowing that you put everything up in a certain order will help you keep track of everything. It'll help keep your gear neat. And ensures that you keep everything with you. Good things to do with that is stuff sacks. Stuff sacks are awesome. You can color coordinate them. For me personally, my kitchen stuff goes in a yellow bag. So I know if I grab the yellow bag, I'm ready to eat. I've got a red bag that's got extra clothing in it. If I'm soaking wet and I need dry socks right now, I know if I grab this red bag, I've got dry socks. I know my sleeping bag stays dry in a dry set. I know I can break that sleeping bag out and warm up if I've got to. But knowing where all that stuff is will help you a lot with keeping track of everything, keeping that routine down. The military uses routines for everything because it works. You know, using a consistent plan. I put my sleeping bag in first. I know my sleeping bag's there. If my sleeping bag's out and I put other stuff up, I need to pull that out to get my sleeping bag in, so I know that first step's good. It sounds silly, but it keeps everything together. It gives you this plan, and you can go on with your business. The biggest thing, or one of the biggest things with that, besides keeping track of your stuff, it saves time. I know personally when I start my breakfast that I can start packing up my entire bag before my breakfast is done cooking. So I'm totally ready to go. I save time. I know everything's where it needs to be, and I'm ready to go after I eat breakfast. So it's just good to have those routines, especially if you're going to be out 10, 12, 15 days. These things become essential. You want this foolproof, thought-proof plan of this is how things go.
I'm a little bit more laissez-faire. Take it as it comes. This guy does my plan. No, I'm kidding. I don't listen to authority.
So my next big point, being lost. Not many people want to think about this, but it's essential to know what to do
before in a mall
when you get
anywhere?
lost.
I've been lost in a mall before. I don't lie. I've been lost looking for my car in a parking lot.
So first thing you need to do if you know you are lost, besides admitting that you are lost, stop, sit down, and calm down. You've got to be relaxed so you don't make the wrong decisions. You're going to start looking for landmarks. You're going to look for the sun. Knowing your orientation, what direction you're headed in, what direction you're going. These are going to kind of ease your mind. in this situation. And it's all about staying calm. You're not going to make the right decisions if you're in a panic. Very easy to get lost again. You can be lost 50 feet from the trail. Super easy.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Do
comfortable
not
with
start
getting
traveling
lost.
again until you know what direction you're headed. Do not move. There are steps to take if you realize you are seriously lost. Again, this goes back to planning. If somebody knows where you're at, they know where to look for you. They know a route that you should be on. So it's way easier to find you if you get lost. But if you are absolutely lost and you know it, stay put out a distress signal. Universal signal of distress is 3. So 3 whistles. If you're going to do a signal fire, 3 smoke rings. So doing things in 3s, if you're using a mirror, you're trying to use 3 flashes. That is a universal sign of distress. Most park rangers, basically all park rangers know that. Most people on the trail understand that signal.
You're out here to have a good time. Getting lost doesn't happen all of a sudden. You can be fooling yourself. Like, essentially, I've never seen this trail before, and I've never really known where I was at from the moment I started. So how can you tell when you're lost? Those signs come with an uneasiness that comes from inside your stomach right here, and a shakiness, and then you feel like panicking. And like if you're an easy panicker, my dog was panicked the other day. She got trapped because she knocked a bicycle over, and she was just pacing back and forth in the small part of my brother's room she was stuck in. And she was panicked, and she was just stuck behind a bicycle. And that's not very frightening to a lot of people, but certain people panic easily. They get that uneasy feeling, all of a sudden everything needs to be resolved right now. 20 minutes ago you were fine. There was nothing to worry about. So just remember that, reflect back on that, and start thinking about where you just were, where you've been, what you've been looking at, and maybe you are still on the right trail. Being lost isn't something that you know you're lost because you're lost. So being lost, you might still be on the right, on the right trail, or headed to where you planned to go. But it's not worth panicking about. Keep a level head, take it easy. You have your food, you have your supplies. Know how long until it's actually a serious issue. If you planned a 4-day hike, you get lost on day 1, not a serious issue. If you plan a 4-day hike, get lost on day 2, that's kind of serious because you're supposed to be turning around pretty soon, or you're supposed to be getting pretty close to your end destination point. Being a trail that you've never seen before, you don't know what it looks like. Being a trail you have been on many, many, many times as a child or yesterday, it can still change overnight. Trails do change, especially maintained ones get permed, get widened, or get narrowed and change directions. Unmaintained ones aren't very well built and can change just due to natural elements. So getting lost, I've had that experience before, and it was kind of like all of a sudden everything was in upheaval. But as soon as we found, it was exciting, and we were never lost by very far. It was just a nighttime trip, and the sun was going down. We were trying to get back to where we were going. We went boating the other day. It got dark, and we couldn't see where the vehicle was parked. So we were just kind of like going down the stream, and then all of a sudden, by just a whisper of a ghost, we saw where the vehicles were parked and where the boat launch was. And it was like, man, we could have just kept going past this, and because it was dark, we didn't bring lights or anything, it would have just been lost. And technically we were lost at that point in time, but due to the amount of time we had been lost, it wasn't a serious issue. It could have become that, But even though we were panicked, it wasn't really a big deal. So being lost multiple times, I kind of enjoy it a little bit.
I don't
Yeah,
want to go.
we're talking about planning things out and knowing every small detail, but that's half the fun. You go out and you're seeing someplace you've never seen before, so how can you know all the small details if you've never been there? Am I going to go watch a million YouTube tutorials on this before I actually dive in and do it? Or am I going to go see this for the first time in real life and not watch the documentary? And then that way, whenever I'm done, I get to watch the documentary afterwards, and I get to relive, like, I did this. Like, I went out and I hiked that Appalachian Trail. So even the most experienced hiker is still found in naive instances or in novel circumstances, because that's just the way it works. Like, that's kind of like the philosophy of being in the woods, you know, of relying on yourself for your capabilities and everything. That's just part of it. You're not going to know where you're at all times. Satellite can give you that reassurance, that comfort of mind, but it's not a necessity. Not at all. In fact, you might find that satellite tracking yourself actually takes some of the fun out of it. But it can be a huge safety advantage. Even if you're not tracking yourself on satellite, having an emergency satellite tracker, it's a good idea.
All right, well next I want to talk about a huge issue with backpacking. It's rain. What an appropriate day for it. I'm going to show you real quick with my buddy Trout, just a quick waterproof tent setup. This is a really basic tent we've got, but learning how to set up waterproof can actually save your life. We're going to show you real quick. So we can go ahead and extend it out. So first thing you want to do is lay down your bottom layer. You can try to do this fairly quickly because this is not waterproof. This is where you're going to sleep. So we want to hurry up. Most of the time when you pack up your tent, you're going to roll your tent. If you have a rain fly, in the rain fly. This keeps it waterproof the whole time you're unpacking. So what we're going to do, first and foremost, we've got our tent laid out and squared out. This is where you would stake it out. Can't really stake in a wood floor today. But this gets your platform ready. So your base is ready to go. Now our setup might collect water, but it's waterproof. So now we're going to move on. We're going to quickly grab our backpack and start pulling stuff out underneath your tarp. So I've got the interior zipped out. Now I'm going to pull out my essential pieces. This is my tent, so I wouldn't be putting a tent in a tent. But you're going to put, a sleeping bag, your clothing, whatever you're going to need dry. You're going to go ahead and put that in your tent before we start really setting it up. Typically, you're going to have a pack cover, which is going to keep your bag waterproof. This one's already waterproof. So I close it up. I can set it to the side. I don't have to wait. So now I'm going to go ahead and run my tent poles. I'm going to run them underneath of my rain fly. And loosely have this connected. So still trying to keep my stuff dry on the inside. A little moisture is not going to kill you, but the more we can stay dry, the better it's going to be. trying to speed up your process. Because if it is raining on you, you're going to want to make this process seamless. You're going to want to do this as fast as you can to stay dry. Again, hypothermia is a big risk. It doesn't have to be freezing cold outside when you have hypothermia. It can be a little windy. So we're basically setting up our rain shelter first. We've got a basic canopy. No, it might not look pretty, but if it's keeping your stuff dry, it's important. So now we go ahead with a super easy system to set up. So this just clips in place. But understand again what your equipment is used for. Most tents that are classified as backpacking tents are going to have a dry setup. They're going to be made to set up dry or wet.
You might have mentioned about freestanding and also there's a quick brake flag you can just set up beforehand. And that's like one of the as well. Got another.
So some of the tents that are out there, Matt brought up a good point. This is an example of a freestanding tent. So this tent can stand on its own without any outside supports. It's its own support. A lot of backpacking tents are not going to be freestanding. So you need to know what you're buying. I made that mistake before. I bought a super light tent that required trekking poles to set up. So I then had to buy trekking poles. So understanding, what it takes to set your tent up, and then of course understanding how to set it up waterproof. So do we have any questions about anything we've talked about so far? No? Nothing? Yes, sir.
What about the piece that goes under the tent?
The ground tarp. Okay. So most companies will offer a ground cloth that is absolutely perfect for their tent. Lowe's sells a material called Tyvek. A lot of the times you can find a roll of Tyvek for the price of your whole tent. I met a guy on the trail that had a tent made of Tyvek, had a rain jacket made of Tyvek. This is extremely approachable. You can spend as much or as little as you want to backpack and be ready. But yeah, like you said, a ground cloth is going to save the life of your tent. Yes, these tents are made to be durable, but when you start going really lightweight, as you do with backpacking, you sacrifice in durability. So any small steps you can make to increase your longevity in your tent, it's going to be good for all your gear. It's going to take care of your gear. So a good process for, since we're on this topic of rain, is packing in reverse. So now I know how I normally pack, but if it's raining, I can't necessarily put my tent in my backpack if I'm using it for shelters. So taking the process and putting it in reverse to where I'm inside the tent, packing from the inside. You're going to try to do the same thing. Again, we're trying to keep our stuff dry. We're trying to make this as dry of a process as we can. Water's the enemy. So by setting up way before you're even going to camp and working on putting everything back. If you have to, have somebody spray you with the water hose outside. Have it in a controlled environment, but give yourself a challenge to keep everything dry. It's a cool process. And on that same topic, so a lot of the gear that you're going to buy is going to be labeled as waterproof and water resistant. That stuff is only going to be true if you maintain it. There is fine print to that. Even the nicest jacket is going to lose its waterproofing after a while. There are a lot of products out there that are going to help you with waterproofing. So, taking that extra preparation to make sure your tent is waterproof before you take it out and put it to the test. Waterproofing your shoes and boots, pants, making sure your rain jacket is waterproof. Typically, with normal use, a rain jacket will stop being completely waterproof after about 6 months. Those are all things to think about. Even the nicest rain jacket is going to lose that coating after a while. So upkeep is really important with all your gear. Well, I am going to move on to the checklist that we've handed out. We're going to kind of run through the products that we carry that would fit into this checklist, and we'll be open for questions after every subheading. So if you have any, just let us know. But we are going to start out with the kitchen stuff. This one's half price, by the way.
Anybody else not get a checklist?
All right, as we start out with the kitchen, one major thing that I never thought about before I got into backpacking, you assume you can start a fire everywhere you go. If you're in the woods, of course I can start a fire. Well, I have backpacked in places there was nothing to start a fire. I've also backpacked places that you could not start a fire. That's where fuel systems are going to come in. This is a really popular one. This is called the Pocket Rocket. It's about 25 years old. Super basic. This is your fuel canister. This is your stove. This really tiny 7-ounce piece of equipment. Matt is using one to cook the food right over here. Very simple. You can find Isopro, the gas, anywhere. Almost every outdoor center. Walmart carries it. You can find this gas about anywhere you need. This is a really basic option. This runs about 50 bucks. It'll last a lifetime. Matt's probably had his just as long as he's been a manager here.
About 10 years.
Yeah. So next we got a really simple cooking pot. This is actually a full kit. This is a 2-person mess kit. So you have a pot with a lid that is also a strainer. You got a bowl and a spork and a cup. So for 2 people, this is everything you would need for camping. Now, there are a lot of options out there. You can find sporks for 49 cents. You know, it doesn't have to be the best piece of gear, but when you're counting grams and ounces, then you know it's all important. And it's important to have something you trust. So here's another really cool option we've got. This is a BioLite stove. So this is just an open canister. This has got a fan, and this is battery powered. So places that you cannot openly burn, you can burn inside of this. This is fully contained. We also have a model that will charge your phone while you're cooking. Really cool system, you know, and again, we break down, when we're backpacking, we're trying to get as much out of every piece of gear as we can. And that's what this kind of thing does.
The nice thing about this one is you charge it up before you go, and it's about equivalent of about 20 gas canisters is the amount of burn time it was, as long as you keep feeding it fuel, which around here you have no problem finding wood. So that's pretty great for areas like here.
Okay. So we've also got, this is a super basic mess kit. I think these run about $20. This has got a ton of stuff in it. You know, if you're a first timer, 20 bucks isn't hard to, you know, justify. So we've got a nice bowl. The lid will become a plate. We've got a small container for other food. This has got a salt and pepper shaker and one other mystery seasoning you pick. Another bowl. You've got a spork with this one, and a strainer and cutting board. So all that in this super small package. It's a really cool option from Light My Fire. Really, really basic, but it's just enough for what you need to do.
And all this stuff, like, use it, just go camping for a night. You can buy very, very lightweight gear and it not come in near as handy as it possibly can, just because you're not used to cooking out of it. You're used to spoiling yourself in the kitchen where you can...
So definitely know, you know, your ability level to what you're trying to buy. I've got some really nice titanium stuff that I don't use that much because I don't need to be that lightweight all the time. Right here, JetBoil is my favorite system. It is super easy. It doesn't weigh a whole lot, but these run about 100 bucks and up. But this is a 1 liter pot. You boil water in this in 2 minutes. That's what they're known for. That is what this is used for. This is boiling water.
I use the Pocket Rocket MSR. I have another one as well. It's just more compactable, but it doesn't do what a JetBoil does. It kind of has like a little windscreen. If I'm cooking on a windy day and I just want to cook real quick, I don't want to wait to get some coals, I don't want to build a fire and use like a grate or anything. That's instantaneous heat. The JetBoils, they keep your heat inside of it without a windscreen, without setting it up next to a log, without like huddling your chest around it, trying to like protect the wind from like getting your flame. So my flame was totally like robbed. Like I could have held my pot like here and gotten more heat. The JetBoil is very efficient about keeping your heat inside the pot.
The main design of the JetBoil is this flux ring. And if you all can see that. Yes, sir.
Does JetBoil use for fuel? Is it white gas?
It uses an isoprop. It's an isolated isobutane and propane. It's a good mixture for altitude change. This is the best mixture they could find that worked at really high altitudes where you would normally burn more fuel. It stays pretty well the same. You will obviously burn more fuel at higher altitude where the air is thinner. It's taking more gas to heat everything up. But yeah, the JetBoil is great because it is, again, it's all in one. It's really quick. One of the quickest way to prepare a meal is dehydrated. So when I'm doing breakfast, I can boil my water in 2 minutes. I pour it in one of these. This takes 10 minutes to sit after you pour boiling water in it. That 10 minutes is when I'm gonna pack up. I'm gonna be ready to go. I'm gonna eat my breakfast, and I'm gonna hit the trail. Trying to cut down on those steps. This is extremely lightweight, calorie dense, which is what you're looking for with food, and it's quick. It's pretty hard to beat, except on price. It is expensive. There are a lot of alternatives out there. Rice-a-roni, there's a lot of stuff you can cook that says maybe you need oil. You don't really need oil. The Lipton noodles, there's a lot of stuff you can get for cheap. It is a lot more approachable.
Are any of your stoves regulated?
Yes.
Are they
Okay.
full open?
So the first jet bowl I showed you, this is like the flagship. This was their original. They came out with the Mighty Mo. The original one is on or off. It is a water boiling machine.
Okay,
So they,
and real quick, the nice thing is the whole system fits inside the cup, so it's really great for saving space.
it comes with a cup for the bottom, so you actually have another drinking cup as well. So 2 people, if you're going 3 or 4 days, 2 people can use a single person jet boil just fine. You can eat out of the jet boil, and you've got an extra cup always. They've upgraded a little bit. This is the Mighty Mo. So we've got the same water capacity as this, but we've smushed it down. So your spoon angle is a little bit better. As you can see, eating out of that one, you're straight up and down. You can eat out of this one, but also, like someone said, there is a regulator on this one. So this is not just off and on. You do have temperature regulation right here. So you can slow simmer in this. You can actually cook food in this. You can heat up your ravioli in this. I wouldn't recommend bringing ravioli, but you can heat it up if you do. So any questions about cooking systems?
Most yeah.
Yes, sir.
Those considered open flame?
The jet boil system is not considered an open flame. Pretty much the entire time you use this, you can leave it hooked up. Even when you're eating, it's designed to be held by the cup, usually.
I saw I didn't have it quite in there. That's one awesome thing about it. It's super stable on uneven ground and everything. And it beats mine totally.
But
I love it.
But yeah, it's meant to do everything from this position. So, a lot of places that won't allow an open flame, you can still use your jet boil.
You use the other one too?
Not so much. You would need, we sell basically a windbreak. It's just aluminum, super lightweight, but it wraps around. That kind of closes in your flame. That'll keep the wind down, keep the wind from affecting your heat source.
Not only is cooking out on the trail a necessity, something you have to do, it's also can be a lot of fun. You can do it your way. You can get fancy. I always bring tinfoil, a knife, and some type of skillet. Whether I'm bringing my gas can or whether I'm even going to use my gas can, a knife is probably one of the most commonly used things, and then something to eat out of. I do a coffee mug, actually. The same thing I drink coffee out of, or pour water in to look fancy, or brew some tea in. I would eat my soup. I would, cut off bits of meat and put it in there, and, just eat right out of my coffee mug. One thing that takes up a lot of weight, we haven't got into water purification yet, but water is something you're going to have to use to clean, to do your dishes afterwards. To clean my knife, that if I step on a thorn and I need to get the thorn out of my hand, you use that same knife that you were just eating with last night, so keep it clean.
Right. That brings up a really good point. a non-thought about kitchen item, hand sanitizer. It's essential. Believe it or not, you do have to use the bathroom when you're out on the trail. So sanitation is really important. I, for one, had I got a Giardia or the norovirus one, but it's not pleasant, and it comes from bacteria, and it's very easy to get it. And hand sanitizer is going to keep those odds down. But yeah, the norovirus is no joke. I was down for a full week. Could not leave my room, like at all. Was lucky that I found a room when I did. Any questions about kitchen? Okay.
Wait, now people using MREs mostly, or like packing your own food and making your own meals? That's what I do. I don't. Life's too short for bad food. Apparently this stuff's pretty good. No, you guys know. I've never tried it. You guys just got the opportunity to taste some of them.
Well, next up, we're going to talk about backpacks a little bit. Can I get a volunteer? Anybody? Anybody? If not, I'll just pick on Trout. He's up here. You want to volunteer? All right. So do me a favor. I'll put stuff on. Go ahead and put that on for everybody. So this is roughly 30 pounds. This is about what you're going to be carrying. Quite a bit of weight. All right. Thanks, bud. I hope you get this done. Okay. So we saw that was a little bit tough. This is a lot of weight to just throw over, especially if you're doing it several times a day. If you think you're probably going to stop for breakfast, you're going to stop for lunch, you're going to be putting this thing on and off for a while. So a big thing that's going to keep you going on the trail, these straps. This is your livelihood. So do you want to be putting all that pressure on your straps? Not really. Okay. You've got this hanging handle. It's not just for hanging your pack up. This is for putting your backpack on. So what you're going to do, you're going to lift it up to your knee. You're going to switch hands. Grab the base of your pack. So I've got all of my weight right here. So I'm one strap and the other strap. Now it might seem silly, it might seem time consuming, but this is going to save the longevity of your straps. If you break a strap and you've got 30 pounds to carry, carrying it like that is not going to be fun. So yeah, trying to improve the longevity of your pack is going to be essential. So we're going to try to do the same thing as we take it off. It's really tempting after you've walked 15 miles to just throw your pack off, but you've got everything you need in your pack. So what we're going to do, try to do the reverse. We're going to flip it around. I'm on my knee. I've got control. Back down.
Having someone help you is very common.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take their pack off for them, they'll do the same for you.
But you don't always have somebody. So, any other questions about backpacks right now?
Internal frame versus external.
So both are really viable options. He said internal frame versus external. For those of you that didn't hear, most new packs are going to be internal frame. You save some weight that way.
My external frame is much more comfortable for me.
Right, absolutely. We've come a long way with comfort, really. That is a focal point of backpacking now. One system in particular. So about the most comfortable pack on the market right now is going to be this Osprey with the anti-gravity. Comfort is the focus of this pack. I always say you can almost wear this pack without shoulder straps because it hugs you.
Wow.
So just like that, you're halfway there. The purpose of a hip belt is to divide the weight between your waist and your shoulders. The more you can do that, the better off you're going to be in the long term with carrying your weight.
And usually these packs are not waterproof as they are. They may come with a cover for it that works very well whenever you're just leaving your pack down. It's going to be quite water resistant as it is, but fortunately you can use that cover while you're using the bag. So it totally keeps everything dry. It's just like it's like a little hairnet, but it goes around your bag. It looks the same. It's whatever size, whatever liter your bag is. Choosing the liter size bag that you want, you're never gonna have one bag and be like, oh, I never need another bag, but they are kind of pricey, so it's hard to justify buying a 65 and a 75. And this guy, what's yours, a 55?
Mine,
That thing's tiny.
mine is 60 liters. So I found that the more room I have, the more weight I'm going to accumulate. Like it or not, if you've got extra room, it's hard to say, nah, I'll just leave that at home. In all reality, 55 liters is enough for a 5-day trip. It's plenty for what you need. You know, a lot of people come in the store and ask for an 80-liter pack. And, you know, aside from trying to summit Everest, you don't really need it. You know,
I've got a 65 plus 10.
absolutely.
And
65 is a good number.
That gives you a 75-liter bag. The plus 10, where that comes from, is underneath the cap right here. It's part of the
Right.
molding. Essentially, you loosen it up from these buckles, and that cap is allowed to raise way up, so you can slide gear underneath your cap. If you have a really wide sleeping pad underneath there, your cover may no longer fit, so that's something to be worried about. But usually when you go hiking, you don't plan for rain, and if you don't plan for rain, it's not going to rain. So, my 65 ended up weighing like 55 pounds because we packed in all of our water. Due to climate, it may or may not rain weeks before your trip, and those streams that you're planning on hiking by through LBO might not be there. So packing water can sometimes be a necessity. It weighs a lot, it takes up a lot of space. And you don't want to lose things just hanging on the outside of your bag, because any sort of weight that shifts is going to throw you off balance whenever you are taking the step up the hill. So that's the reason all these straps are on here. It looks like, why is that strap there? It doesn't do anything. But essentially it makes it part of your body. Like harnessing a saddle on a horse, you can't have your saddle moving around because your horse just isn't going to like it. Fitting your pack is something we do for you. It's there is a science to it, and it's going to get you darn close to perfect, if not perfect. Once you weigh your pack down different weights, you'll adjust it differently. You can go looser for more comfort, tighter for more stability, but essentially, there's kind of one way to do a pack fitting. Tight around the waist, not resting on your shoulders, and then your lumbar is going to be pretty well form-fitted to you. It's going to move like a part of your body. So whenever I had a 55-pound pack on in my 65-liter bag, it was filled to the max. I like carrying a lot of stuff, you know, like some of it I might not use, but should I still bring it?
We got another volunteer today?
Sure.
Come on up. All right. So another part about having a backpack and having it fit you really well. Osprey, we've used them for almost 10 years now. They have a lifetime guarantee on all their packs. They've got a really cool process of actually heat molding your belt too. Your belt should sit about at the top of your hip bones. You're looking for it to contour your wrist. So I'm going to show on this shoulder opening. You have fun yet? Yeah. All right. So go ahead and put this belt on. And then you're going to clip this way. You're going to clip these together, like so. And then you're going to pull both drawstrings at the same time. You get this to line up Right in there. Okay. Think you can do that? Even with all this pressure? So we're going to pull that one, and we're going to pull that one at the same time. All right, hold that just a second. So what we're going to do, we're going to sit this over the top of his hip bones. So his hip is sitting right in there. Am I poking hard enough? All right, so we're sitting right in there. So now you're going to cinch it pretty tight because we're actually going to snug it up a little bit more with this process. Okay. So we don't have a lot of shifting. We're able to distribute that weight across his waist. We're going to take that off. So this is our isoform molding oven. Super fancy name. So what we do with this process is we're going to heat this belt up 150 degrees, not too much, but it's going to actually mold to your waist. Which is going to give you a really custom feel. Most Osprey packs anymore don't come with this, but this is an actual feature that almost every Osprey pack can adapt one of these belts. So it's just that extra level of comfortability. While this is setting off, we'll kind of show some more of adjustment with the backpack.
Yeah, we were talking about how large you might want your pack to be. My 65, you can really dial down. They have the top cap that you can totally remove, and then there's like an underneath cap underneath it. So this is the same big pack we saw earlier, shrunk down to be tight, to fit you comfortably. It's still going to be tall, so that would be the advantage of having a smaller liter pack, is it's not going to be up here on your back. It's not going to be where your head can like bump into it whenever you're looking around.
So like Landon saying, a normal pack is going to have this very top pack, which is called the brain. The brain is where you keep your instant access items, extra snacks, stuff you need to get quick that you don't need to search for it. You're going to keep those accessible. This allows you to do that. But you know, if you're trying to save weight, yes, this doesn't weigh very much, but you know, some people, it's every ounce that counts. So this is completely removable, and you've got a nice top cover that works the same way. Otherwise, you've got a nice big front accessory pocket. This is going to be great for things like a rain jacket. Again, stuff you need to get to quick, but it's not extremely pertinent all the time. They have really nice stretchy mesh pockets for water bottles and such. Almost every backpacking frame is going to come with a hip belt pocket on both sides. Again, this is really quick access stuff. I've used this for my cell phone if I need to pull out to take a picture really quick. Small snacks, stuff I want to get to without taking my whole pack off. It's a really good option for that.
And if you want to put like water bottles in them, that's one option. Even though they don't come with a bladder, they do have routing. Almost all backpacks from a major company will have routing for your hose.
Yeah, almost every backpack, like he's saying. Yeah, I've got a hydration pack in this one. I've got a really nice sleeve in the back. I don't know if I can show you all. Real quick, I carry a 3-liter bladder at all times, but my water is hands-free.
Real quick, this is another sample we're going to pass around. This is good to go, fairly new company. They're mainly known for being gluten-free vegan. For some of y'all, that's probably a plus. Some of you might not want to, but try it anyways. It's really good. If you do have any allergies like nuts or seeds, this does have it in it, so just be careful of that. Start passing that one around.
Give us a cups. Give us a little cups.
Yeah, they already got it.
Do we have any other backpack questions? Yes, sir.
What about weight distribution?
Weight distribution, that's a great question. Okay. So, great rule of thumb, we're going to try to keep our heavy stuff at the bottom. This is going to put it as close to your hip belts as possible. The smaller stuff, basically if you have your heavy stuff at the top, your backpack is going to carry you around just as much as you're carrying it. If you turn too fast, it's going to go with you. So you're trying to keep this as close to your what's securing you as you can. So most packs are going to have a cavity specifically for that big heavy item. Your big three, it's either going to be your tent or your sleeping bag. The other of the big three is your actual backpack. Typically these are items that you're going to spend the most money on. You're going to use up the most of your weight capacity on those items, but they're the most important for your overall safety and health and enjoyability.
So keeping weight in mind, essentially keeping it mid and lower for your kitchen, your heavy pulls, everything, and hacks, water, you need to store that very low in the bag. But second to your weight distribution, functionality of loading your pack, so you don't have to constantly be taking out things you aren't looking for to get to what you need. He said that there's a lower chamber in there that's totally separate from the whole top of the pack. So inside that small bit that you would put your sleeping bag, it's inside of a compression sack, so it takes up a little bit less space, and maybe a little bit of water, and my tent doesn't fit inside my bag, it's on the outside strapped to it. It's a big tent, just a two-person, you know, it's the size of the MSR. But it does help, you know, like with that lower chamber being divided from the top of it. I can pull my sleeping bag out and I can get to my large gallon of water without my whole pack sliding in to fill up the space that it was in. So that is right here on the bag. And this little bit right here zips up to keep this whole chamber closed off from here down. So whenever I take things out from right here, everything that's above that doesn't fall in to take up its space. That's pretty handy just because loading and unloading your sleeping bag, you're going to use it every day. You might not be using all the gear that's inside your bag. For instance, your first aid kit or something, and you don't want to have to take it out to get to what you're using. So a lot of your weight's going to be right here. If I need to get to my kitchen, you can unzip it from right here, or you can unzip it from inside of the bag. It's kind of just a division inside of there. Those packs only have one. I don't know too many packs that have multiple divided chambers within the main of the bag. Yeah, definitely a good question. Weight distribution is very important. Convenience of using it. That's pretty well the main two things that I keep in mind while loading my pack. You can kind of have a preference of where you want your weight, whether it's closer to the bottom or more in the mid, lower back area of your bag.
So
Just whatever is most comfortable. Left to right, you also need to distribute your weight evenly from shoulder to shoulder, or kind of like whenever you're turning or leaning one way, don't want one side of the pack to be heavy all day and the other side to be light. Once you cinch it down, it can kind of change it up, you know, like just putting sandbags in a pack and fitting it to you doesn't work perfectly. You need to load it with your gear the way you're going to hike it, fit it to you. So how soon do you start loading your gear inside your pack, or buying gear, or planning, or packing for a trip before you go? You might load it all up the night before, put it on a plane, and you're good to go. They do make you put those inside like a plastic bag, but you can ship one of these guys with the loose straps on it. It's not okay, so they put it inside of like a plastic bag, and that's how you would ship one. But you need to go ahead and load it at least once, at least a week or two before you're going to leave your trip. So you've had it on, so you can peel it out, so you can hike around your backyard with it on. And know things that you might want to change once it's time, before it's time for you to leave, and it's too late to buy a smaller pack.
So now we are molding this tip belt in place. That easy. He just stands there for 5 more minutes. Looking pretty. All right. So, you know, kind of piggybacking again off what I said earlier. You know, packing your backpack to be weight conscious, to understand, you know, where the heaviest weight's going to be. That's going to come with repetition. You know, creating a plan of what goes in first. You know, where everything's going in your pack. You can set your weight aside so you know how it rides, how it fits on your back, well before you start a trail. So just to show you a little bit, this backpack looks really comfortable already, and you know that's what they're designed for. But the more that you cinch up your pack, the more you tighten down the load in your pack, and the more you adjust how the load rides on you, the more comfortable you are all day. You're trying to go for even distribution again with the shoulder straps and your waist belt. And basically the more you can do that, the easier your all day is going to be. Once you're loaded up, everybody gets tired. Just throwing your thumbs in right at your armpits will actually open your lungs up, help you catch your breath, make the load feel a little bit easier going uphill or through a tough section, you know. So do you feel super molded now? Awesome. Well, you can take it off if you want. So yeah, this will be sitting here. Against Caleb, right? Okay. This will be sitting here in Caleb's shape. If anybody wants to check it out. Any more questions about backpacks before we move on?
What's your warranties cover? You said they had a lifetime warranty.
Osprey's warranty covers everything.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you drive over it with your vehicle and break it.
So
You take
straps or
yes,
everything.
Literally anything that you can take out to that pack. If you can't use it anymore, they will either repair it or they will replace it free of charge. They will never charge you for anything. They've been in business since the 70s.
Yeah, Osprey came out in 1976, and they still hold the warranty on stuff from the 70s. Their warranty is strong. That's why we keep them in the store. Almost everybody in here has an Osprey pack in one way, shape, or form, but it's a great company, and we definitely stand behind it. Any more questions?
They're not that much higher priced than your knockoffs or your cheapo packs either. So they're like a people over profit company. Anything they do, they're in the pack industry though. I don't know if they make anything else. But
Backpacks and luggage.
yeah,
That's about it.
little day packs, hydration bags.
Did you make that?
Yeah. All the way up to like Alpine, Arctic.
They make a lot of specialty packs for riding your bike that have reflectors on it. It's a really specific company for a lot of different packing needs. So we're gonna move on to sleep systems. First on your list you see is a pillow. We've got a couple examples. We've got the bare bones basic one. This is from Climate. This is around $30. But if you're like me, I can't really sleep without a pillow in some shape or form. This is a good option. Also, using a stuff sack as your pillow, like stuffing it with a jacket or some extra clothes, that'll get you by if you are trying to be more weight conscious. This doesn't weigh a whole lot though. I don't know. I'll take the weight for a good night's sleep. This is the next model up. This has got a nice little cover. Feels a little more plush. So next up, we're going to work to sleeping bags. We've got a few examples up here. A lot of the times what you're going to look for, sleeping bags come either down or synthetic. The synthetics are getting better now to where they're not as heavy as they used to be. Down is superior when it comes to weight and packability, absolutely. When you pack down though, it is harder to come back to that shape. Lofting your sleeping bag, it might sound silly, but I mean just giving it a shape to get the insulation all through your baffles. That's going to keep you warm just as much as the bag itself. With your sleeping bags, usually there's two styles. This is a traditional rectangle bag. It's not as weight conscious, but it's warm and it's comfy. When you start trying to cut weight, mummy bag's another common shape. You're gonna not have as much room to move around, but you're also cutting down, sometimes a pound, just for having a different shape. This one in particular is gonna have a hood. The hood cinches up tight. If you do get really cold, you can have just your nose exposed. A really, really good option.
There's a lot of technical stuff to know about a sleeping bag. I mean, it's kind of one of the most technical items as far as like how to use it and when to use it and how you're going to be using it best. So if you guys know, they make sleeping bag liners, they make sleeping bag covers, and then your pad, usually just one will go underneath your sleeping bag. But based on how you're hiking, where you're hiking, there's different ways to do it to keep you cooler and to keep you warmer up off the ground, keeping that like transfer of temperature from penetrating up and giving you cold spots on your hip and your shoulder if you're a side sleeper, or on your rump if you're sleeping on your back. Like thin spots can build in your sleeping bag and get cold spots. So just because it says this is a 20-degree weather bag doesn't mean, oh, the weather is calling for 20 degrees, I'm fine with the bag I have. There are different temperature ratings for bags that are comfort zones, or this bag is appropriate and will keep you alive. And then, based on what equipment you're pairing it with, your thermarest or climate pad, very warm pad right there, how windy it is with your tent and your vestibule coverage, and how tight your rain cover fits around your tent can change how well that sleeping bag can perform for you. So it can be 30 degrees, super windy, super arid, and all of a sudden your 20-degree bag feels like it's just enough for you to get your eyes shut and fall asleep for 30 minutes before you wake up and have to move around and get kind of toasty again. You can really waste a great bag's warmth on buying a cheap liner, or you can really improve a cheap bag by buying a really nice liner. There are different strap points for tents, like you do use these anchor points on the side to allow more air to enter your tent, to allow your breath to not accumulate in there and the humidity to raise way up, and then all of a sudden there's frost on the inside of your tent while you're trying to pack it up the next morning. And then on windy days, maybe you don't have that option to strap out the sides of your tent. Again, knowing your gear, asking us sometime whenever you're interested in buying a product, or just using it multiple ways. You can change the uses of a tent and trap out air, or you can trap in air. And you can also allow breathability of a tent on hot days. You don't have to use the rain fly. Privacy is a good thing. We all like privacy. But if it's really toasty out, really humid like it is around here, you're not up in higher elevation, taking your rain fly off can be nice to kind of catch a breeze and stay cool in the night. Laying directly on the ground.
All right, so next we're going to talk about pads. This is one of my personal favorites. This is on the cheaper end of the spectrum. This is the Z-Rest from Thermarest. The good thing about this, it's really predictable. You know this shape is as good as it's going to get. So you can prepare for this. It's definitely not getting any smaller, but it's also, it's going to keep its rigidity. I've got one of these, it's like 10 years old now. My dog uses it if I'm not, but it's still in really good shape.
They're very
on the more expensive end, we start moving to more comfortable. This is from Climate. This is about their base model. This is right at a pound, so not a lot of weight, and about 2.5 inches of insulation underneath. This is definitely designed to keep you to the center of it. If you see the ridges on the outside, they're slightly raised. And this whole pad shape is contoured to keep you in the center. It helps keep you on your pad. This pad does no good if you wake up next to it. You know, so good option right here. Climate also makes some that are lighter in weight, and we've got these two models. So the blue one is just the ultralight. It is bare bones, a little over 11 ounces, super, super lightweight, super, super compact package. This is the next step up. This is insulated. So just the same as this pad, but we've got insulation running all through it. It's going to be similar to like a synthetic sleeping bag. It's just fill that's going to hold in that warm air and keep you warmer in the long run.
The reflective stitching in there isn't just to make it look pretty. It's actually for like transduction.
What price range is that insulated one, the one?
What's the price on that one?
The orange one runs around 100. I think it's 119, I believe.
Yeah.
But
And there's two versions. There's the ultralight, which I think is what that one is, and then just a normal light one. I think it's like what 95, 85 or something like that. Yeah.
Yep, this is an ultralight as well. It's not near as insulated. It's 100. That's pretty typical for your pad. $100. The first one we showed you is 40.
this runs $45. The green one's around $65. So for 20 bucks more, it's not too bad to have another 2 inches below you. One of the most overlooked and important things about backpacking is getting a good night's sleep. This is why this is a big 3. Again, our pack, our pad, and sleeping bag, and then
Ultralight might be an extra 20 bucks or so. But if you guys want to feel up these whenever we're done, sort of the thickness of this, if you're going to be laying your pad outside and moving it, yeah, go.
The thing is turning in right now, it can also be used as a pillow.
you got it.
Yeah.
Multi-uses.
And if you pop a hole in one of these inflatable guys, if it's an ultralight, it's just that much easier to poke a hole in. You got to be careful with them. Protect your pads. It's kind of one thing that I wouldn't share too much with other people, because you can have a slight leak, and then all of a sudden you wake up in the middle of the night with your pad on the ground. Having a little bit thicker one, it's a little bit heavier, a little bit less compactable.
It's nice because Climate's going to have a patch kit in all your pads, but and they do back up their sleeping pads. But when you start sacrificing weight, yes, it does get more expensive, and yes, it does get a little easier to tear up. You lose that durability that you have with the weight.
Functionality, like you can take this thicker pad and you'd be more comfortable just laying it on the ground, or even inside of like somewhat of a dirty tent, with maybe like tracking in and out some like little pieces of sharp rock or something. They can poke a hole in just like a bicycle inner tube or something, which are surprisingly durable. I've accidentally poked mine with a knife and I was like, oh, it's done for. But it was fine. It doesn't leak to this day.
They just came out with a new one. I saw the show last year. It's called Armalite or something like that. It's basically like the back of an alligator. They literally had it displayed on top of broken glass and shards and everything, but it's very heavy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's great for kind of car camping kind of thing, or base camp, but backpacking it's going to be a pretty heavy pad.
And the industry's changing by the day. There's more people like you guys really interested in getting into this, and the companies are getting a lot more approachable with their designs. Not everybody's looking for that $10,000 hiker anymore. Now we're looking at closer to $1,000 to be totally set up for any circumstance. Absolutely. And again, we're out here to try to show how approachable it can be. There's a lot of stuff you can use that you already have for backpacking. There's a lot of things you can recycle. there are ways to cut down cost. You know, there are ways to get into this at a slower pace. It is not gung-ho right off the bat.
Yeah, a lot of knowledge to be found in finding your way of preference or something, whether you're a synthetic guy to down. Down has like the extra packability, but you can't leave it packed all the time. Just one thing to know, even about your down coats or something, you don't want to leave them inside a stuffed sack. So that can be an advantage to having, you know, something like wool or a natural material that's actually going to be waterproof. And no one sells you a wool sweater and they're like, hey, this doesn't get wet. They don't brag about it like that. But it is, you know, kind of like knowledge you can have. So even using wool underneath your sleeping pad inside your tent can be super handy for having a little microclimate between you and the ground, keeping you off the cold weather, as well as it's not going to get wet. You know, going in and out of your tent while it's raining, you're going to track water inside. Your breath can make it start dripping on you in the middle of the night. Kind of wild.
We're going to move on to tents. You know, making sure you have everything with your tent. It seems kind of redundant, but most tents are going to have your basic tent structure. You're going to have poles, or a lot of tents, you're going to use an outside pole. My personal tent uses trekking poles as its main support. I wish I could show that right now, but again, we can't really stake into the hardwood floor as much as I'd like to. Your stakes, again, guy lines, that is the lines that are going to give your rainfly structure and keep it really weather resistant. You know, the wind can blow your tent away if it's not staked down. It's happened. I've watched it happen. It's quite comical if it's not you, but don't be that guy. And then your footprint or a ground cloth if you choose that option. Now, again, we touched on that a little bit earlier. It's going to improve the life of your tent. Really, it's not going to weigh a lot more. But again, yeah, you're looking at years and maybe even decades of, you know, your tent lasting.
There's always someone that can do it better, that knows something you don't, or that will know more than you or the next guy. So just because you're maybe set in your ways, like, you know, there's always something to be learned about it, like anything.
So we'll go ahead. If we have any questions about shelter or the sleep systems.
They also asked about the new sleeping quilts and they compare like the bundle sleeping bags.
That's a good question. So yeah, he asked about quilts as opposed to a sleeping bag. Quilts are a great option. That's going to cut down on weight. Even though this only has one zipper, this zipper is probably 3 to 4 ounces. So if you take this zipper out, yeah, you might not be able to cozy up as much, but you just lost a considerable amount of weight. A lot of companies now are integrating like a foot box into a quilt. So it's just a flat piece of material with a little toe box that you can put your pad in. So again, you stay on your pad all night and you're not using as much weight. It's a great option for summer. Besides that, there's a lot of companies now. North Face has one. Mountain Hardware's got one, but that actually will tether to your sleeping pad by itself. It'll just have bungees on the back instead of a zipper, and you just kind of cinch it to the back of the pad. You stay on your pad, and you've got less material. So that's another option. But yeah, that's that question. Yeah, any more questions? All right, well, we'll go ahead and start moving on to clothing. Mainly in clothing, we're going to look for anything but cotton. Cotton is the enemy. Cotton is going to trap water. When your clothes get moist, that's going to be discomfort. That's going to be most of your issues with comfort are going to come from your clothing not doing its job.
You see hot on cotton right now, I probably do. It doesn't burn, so I'm a
So
cotton fan.
with your top layers, we're going to try to look for wools. Synthetics are great at being moisture wicking. We're looking for these keywords: moisture wicking.
Typically they're packable as well. They take up less space. Like a pair of Adidas shorts versus like Chaps cotton shorts, like really takes up a lot less space inside your bag. And then packing a spare pair of shoes. You guys might have questions on that.
So when we look for clothing, we're looking for multi-purpose. I'm not just going to find a t-shirt. I'm going to find a t-shirt that does something else. Everything has, most of what we sell for summer is going to have UPF, so it's going to be sunproof. Moisture wicking is going to keep you dry. Being able to keep you dry is going to be not only helpful in the summer, keeping you too hot, but in the winter, that's what's going to cause hypothermia. Layering is extremely important in colder climates. You can see Clyde over here. He is pretty well layered up. We've got a nice synthetic shirt on him. And this is a great layering piece that doesn't weigh a lot. This jacket actually folds into its pocket, which keeps the size down. You can always pack this, even if it's 70 degrees during the day. Your temperatures can change in hours.
It just helps you pack it. Like if you're hiking, all of a sudden you're going to be taking off clothes. It might be colder and you might want a jacket, but you don't need to be sweating through it. So having this guy easily accessible, just clipped on the outside of your bag, inside its protective case or protective pocket, inside its own pocket, can just make it more easily accessible. It's going to be clean. It's going to be dry whenever you go to pull it out, unpack it. It takes up no space. It's like the size of your phone these days.
So with your bottom layer, you're gonna again look for those same things. You're gonna look for multiple qualities. Pants that dry really quick sometimes are gonna be better than something that's waterproof. Waterproofing is great for your outer layer, but usually when you make something waterproof, you lose a little bit of breathability. I've found in a lot of cases, even with footwear, I would rather be quick drying than actually waterproof. I find if I wear my heavy boots, even when I think I need them in the summer, I'm going to sweat more on the inside than I could possibly get wet from the outside. So thinking about that kind of stuff, which would you rather?
Typically, I do an emergency pocket poncho. It looks like saran wrap. It's inside a little bag. It's kind of like a one-time use thing. Maybe you could get 2 uses out of it, but they're so easy to tear. But it's there for you in the case. I keep it like right inside the hip pocket of my bag. So if it starts raining real quick, you just throw it on over your bag, over everything. And just that light mist in the air, you'll be soaked within a few hours. So it just keeps that off you. You get a little bit of sunshine, throw it over yourself real quick. It's like poncho style. And it helps you release some of your stored up body moisture. Helps you dry out inside of your clothing really quickly, because you have waterproof gear on, sure it's keeping the rain out, but you moving so much, you're burning so many calories hiking. So storing up some good nutrients the week beforehand keeps you ready for that hard workout, your hard hike. Keeps you dry to keep quick drying materials on. Maybe just go ahead and plan on getting wet.
So along those lines, we're going to talk about a rain shell. Personally, my rain jacket, it has one pocket. It is not fancy. It just does one job. I've got a really fancy rain jacket that I put a lot of time and effort in picking out. but I only break it out when it's raining, which is not, I don't really plan hikes when it's, a torrential downpour. Usually I use a rain jacket in the emergency. So I look for lightweight. Waterproof is a very vague term in the outdoor industry. So again, making sure you keep your stuff treated and upkeep on your stuff, maintenance and upkeep is it's really crucial.
Yeah, because waterproofing does wear out over time. Even on a tent, it can sort of get like wear spots in it. I had a guy tell me once that there is no such thing as truly waterproof. I don't know if in 2018 our technology has finally found something like that, but.
So next up, we're going to move on to footwear. This is one of the first things people look at when they're going to get into a sport. You got to get the right shoes. We've got a few options right here. You've got your ultimate backpacker. This is a backpacking boot. This has got a full shank through it, which is going to keep you rigid if you're adding extra weight, which all of you are planning on doing. This is going to keep you safe. This is almost a must. A true backpacking boot is always going to have that shank. That's what you're really looking for. This has got the 4D chassis, which is, it really cups your heel in. More than getting your size exactly right in the toe box, we need to make sure your arch is in the right place. We need to make sure your heel doesn't move around. Any kind of movement inside your boot is going to be friction. Friction is a blister, guaranteed, every time. Blisters are not fun, especially when you have miles and miles to hike left. So really, my rule of thumb with a hiking, backpacking boot, one full size above your normal size. It might sound crazy, but that gives you all the room you need in your toe box. Your foot can grow one full size after 5 miles of hiking. One full size. And if you have nowhere for that foot to go, you're going to get a blister. It's definitely something to think about. New school of thought, this is a better hiking shoe. This is extremely basic. It's more lightweight. We still have a pretty rigid shank through this, but not as much as the boot. So what we gain is mobility. You're a lot more sure-footed if you don't have a clunky boot. The biggest thing that I've learned in my experience, you hike your own hike. I can talk to you till you're blue in the face, or till I'm blue in the face, or you are, I guess. But what's comfortable to you might not be comfortable to me. So yeah, you have to do your own thing. Find out what works for you. This is my favorite hiking shoe, a sandal. It's not waterproof. It is super airy, but there's nothing to worry about. I don't even have to bring socks if I don't want to. But again, so what we've got with this Chaco sandal, it's infinitely adjustable. So if my feet get fat, I can adjust for it. Chaco was based on a boot in the first place. They basically cut the top of the boot off and kept the platform. This is a extremely sturdy platform. This platform goes nowhere. I can show you 20-year-old Chacos that still look like this. They're bulletproof. That's my favorite hiking shoe.
If you're doing backpacking, bikepacking, we can bolt on your cleats onto the bottom of the Chaco real quick. Just hammer shank in there.
Do we have any questions about footwear?
Are you going to just bring one pair of shoes?
What is missing the breathability of water?
So that's the big trade-off. In some aspects, waterproof is completely necessary. Usually I save waterproof for winter. If I'm hiking through snow, I know I need waterproof way more than I need breathability. Adversely, if I'm hiking in the summer and have my boots on and my wool socks, my feet are going to sweat. So what's the point of having waterproof boots? You know, if it's coming from inside, what's the point? So really, you know, again, so planning your trip, you know, knowing what people are wearing on the trails you're planning to hike. It's about, when I did the Appalachian Trail, it was about 50-50 split of trail runners and boots. The more staggering fact was it's about a 60% flip as people got on the trail of people that went from boots to trail runners. You know, only 40% of people that start out in boots stay in boots the whole time. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't believe it until I sent my boots home for my Chacos. Yeah, I did 300 miles in Chacos and was never happier on the trail. You know, a lot of rough terrain, you're going to be more cumbersome with a heavy supported boot than you are. You know, with a trail runner, you're kind of more sure-footed because you feel more what's under your feet. And again, the breathability in a trail runner, the more your feet can breathe, the less likely you are to get a blister, for your feet to sweat. You know, and taking care of your feet is the most important part of your hike.
And that just comes with knowing what your preference is. I would say I still recommend heavier, stiffer shoes more often to people based on what they're telling me they want. You know, and then as like a second pair of shoes, Chacos are about as good as it can get because they're so packable. They don't take up near as much space inside of your pack. It'd be hard to justify bringing 2 pairs of these. But plenty of people do. They have 2 pairs of the exact same shoe. And they're not light. So the lighter the boot is more my preference. But saying that, people usually tell me that they want a heavier, more supportive shoe. Now, they don't come in and ask me what I recommend while telling me that. It's kind of just off context. So if you want us to help you out, just try on multiple shoes. Lighter weight, like Salomon, they're from Great Britain. Keen, typically heavier. A heavier shoe. And people love them. They're protective around your foot. They move with you because they're so supportive. Your lighter shoes are going to be more conforming. I did the AT. What portion of it I did was in Tom shoes. You can bring 5 of these. They take up no space at all. And by the time you wear one out, just pop your next bit out. And, I wouldn't say burn your old pair. Take them home with you. Pack them out. If you take it in, take it out. So.
Any more questions about clothes or footwear? All right. Let's move on to food and water. So we've given you some samples of a few things we offer. These are going to be lightweight, calorie dense, but really that's what you're looking for. You can find a lot of stuff in the grocery store that will serve you well on the trail. Summer sausage is a great one. It's got a lot of fat. Fat is calories. The more calories, the more nutrition you can pack into a small package, the better off you're going to be. On average, you're going to need 2 pounds of food a day. It's a lot of weight. So you really need to, planning is going to be your best thing with food. Plan out, where you're getting your calories. The hardest thing I've found to do when I'm hiking is getting enough calories. I'll get tired way before I realize I'm hungrier than I am tired. And one of the best things for getting your body temperature up when it's cold is eating a good meal before bed. Getting an extra hot meal in will help you sleep through the night. It'll keep you warm. Water is essential. On average, I try to carry at least 2 liters of water with me. when I leave every water source. Again, with planning, you're going to look for your water sources as you plan out your routes. You got to have water. It's necessary. I don't care how many miles of hiking you can do. If you don't have water, you're not going to make it. So yeah, really finding your water sources. We've got a whole lot of options as far as water filtration. These range anywhere from about $25 for this nice mini Sawyer filter. Extremely accessible. This is a dirty water system. You get dirty water, you squeeze it through this filter with the bag that's supplied with it. You've got clean water coming out the end. Great system to have. As you can see, this is in the package. It's not even this big. Another really cool option, MSR has been a super trusted name in water filtration for over 20 years. Great company. Personally, I typically prefer a clean water system, which means all the water that I'm carrying is ready to drink, is ready to use. So I carry this one actually. So this is a very small pump filter. It has a small pre-filter on it. This is going to keep any kind of random contaminants out, gravel, whatever. So what I do, I'll take this nice cool strap that they've got, I'll wrap it around a rock or something to keep it submerged, and you just pump. This is one of the fastest filters on the market. I believe it's 25 pumps per liter. So it is some work, but having like completely clean water all the time, it's worth it. We've got a couple new options. And actually, this is going to be your cheapest option. These are water tablets. It's $10. Super cheap, but this will purify your water. Might not taste the greatest, but it's pure water, and you've got all your contaminants out. This is a really cool new system that we just started carrying. This is from Grail. So you fill it up, you've got this nice trendy cup, and you literally just push it through. Oops, put the cap on. And you've got clean water.
That one there is actually one of the few ones that will actually kill viruses as well. So it's great only for in the States, but also outside the country where virus is more of a bigger problem.
This is a great new option. Super lightweight. This is all you got.
Does it wear out?
What's that?
Does it wear out?
The filter is replaceable. We have extra ones. I think it's after 300 liters or something like that.
It'll do 40 gallons.
Coffee filter. Then put the wool down.
And we've got this. This is the SteriPen. This is basically an ultraviolet light that is going to purify your water. I believe it takes about 60 seconds. But you turn your little light on, put it down in your water, and you're good to go. Another really cool option. Any questions?
Do you recommend filtering it still after you do something like that? Just do a basic filter?
You know, personally, so I used, oh man, I've used an ultralight, or an ultraviolet light that went onto my Nalgene. Same concept, you just kind of shake it for a little bit. What I would do, I'd find like a t-shirt or something, and filter through that t-shirt, just to kind of get your sediment out. But yeah, I mean, just so you're not drinking it. I don't know. On the Appalachian Trail, they call it trail spice. You kind of get a little bit everywhere. Leaves, dirt, dust. You get used to it after a while, but you'll always find something floating around in your water. Any more questions about filtration?
And you can get up closer to the peak and really notice, or not notice, such a drastic temperature change. Like, I couldn't believe that like our water started freezing because it was 19 degrees, but the sun was shining, and our water wasn't in the sun; it was inside our bag. And the sun was shining, the atmosphere is so thin, and we were up there very comfortable in just a light clothing, but it was down to 19 degrees. So wherever Colby's pack is with that hydration hose, that guy right there can freeze very quickly, then all of a sudden your water is no longer accessible. So bring a little bit of whiskey, not much, you know, you're not drinking. I'm not advocating that. It's just because it'll potentially keep your water from freezing so quickly, and then, you know, being a hassle to be able to use and hydrate yourself. Because I put on an ice cube or something.
So that being said, like you was talking about, some sort of a vessel for your water. Nalgene also makes a 2-liter bottle, just great big and tall. A lot of people will just carry one bottle. That'll do everything. I like to be hands-free with my hydration pack. I've got one hose. I can literally keep that in my mouth with my backpack on, and it's ready to go.
You can also blow the air or blow the water back into your bladder and out of your hose, keep it from freezing so quickly. Because inside the hose, it'll freeze in 15 minutes.
And then a water bottle is also another option. You know, for budget conscious, Smart Water, they sell it at every gas station, dollar stores, whatever. It's a really good size bottle for almost every bottle holder on pack. But yeah, they're $1.50. And it's a reusable bottle, just like everything else. Yeah, any more questions about water?
There are youth-approved methods of keeping water from freezing. You know, because if you wake up in the morning, it's been cold all night, you got cotton mouth, and your full, clean water is frozen, you can't get to it. Like, you kind of need water, you know. I'm sure you guys have seen the movies. That's what everyone's always worried about first. Like, oh gosh, how are we going to stay hydrated? So, if your water is all frozen, you can use snow and melt that. You do still need to filter it. Some people don't filter fresh snowfall, but you know, we're not here to tell you what to do. We're kind of just here to help out with any insecurities, questions you could possibly come up with for us. Vodka for your Tennessee folks.
All right. Well, next up, we're going to talk about some headlamps and flashlights. I think everybody knows what a flashlight is. Headlamps, same thing, but we're going hands-free. If you're using trekking poles or you know, clutching on your backpack, you don't want to be holding the flashlight if you do get stuck in the dark. You know, it's ideal to set up camp before the sun does fall down. But if you do get stuck, it's nice to have a headlamp. My headlamp stays in my waist pocket. I know where it's at all times. Yeah, pretty essential. Extra batteries are good if you want them.
And if you want the one with the red light feature, it just keeps bugs from getting in your face. You ever like bike at night and you got a real bright light on? Brighter might not always be better, because all of a sudden every bug on the street knows where you're at now. Like, ooh, bright light, and then all of a sudden they're in your face.
Well, and the other thing, a red light won't blind your buddy as much. That's the other positive. Red light, they use them in the military for nighttime, just because it's not going to blind your buddy. Next up, we'll go to toiletries. Toothbrush, toothpaste. You can find about anywhere. You can find travel size stuff. You can go as far as cutting the end off your toothbrush to save a little bit of weight if you are that extreme.
And real quick, while we're talking about lights, super lightweight solar panel. If you do, like a lot of people do, they want to bring AAAs and they want to bring pounds of AAAs. But a lithium battery is going to be a lot lighter weight, rechargeable. So if you got some good sunshine, something like that, you can possibly strap it on your pack all day while you're hiking. It does give you an indicator for how much it's charging its battery, and you can recharge your phone, your flashlights, and things off of that lightweight, portable
And really, so last thing I'm going to mention, you know, everything else, you pretty much know what it is with all the extras. Trekking poles. I used to be the guy that made fun of trekking poles. Like, look at this guy hiking down a trail and he needs 2 sticks. These can cut down, or basically divide up your pack weight by up to 35%. You're taking that weight off your back, off your joints. And also you have added stability. You've always got 3 points of contact when you use trekking poles, which is almost essential when you've got, you know, an extra 30 to 40 pounds on your back. Falling with a backpack is not fun at all. I will let you know that little tidbit.
It's always whenever you already got a stub toe or a hurt knee or something that you actually end up taking a spill.
So when we're using trekking poles, you're going to look for a natural 45 with your arms. And we're also going to alternate between basically right arm, you're going to go left leg. So what you're trying to do is you're going to match your step. You're going to go about even with your plant foot. That gives you a constant 2 on the ground, and you got 1 in the air. It's a little funky at first, but you'll get into a rhythm of it. Like I said, I made fun of these for years. Like, no way I'll ever use them. This was one of my saviors on the Appalachian Trail.
Runners even use them, like, and it's not like a control thing, it's a speed thing. It makes you stronger and faster and more endured as well.
It does it.
Saves energy.
Yeah, and it'll give you a little bit of different leverage. A lot of times when it's the end of the day and you're pushing as hard as you can to get that last mile in, you need everything you can get, and I mean, myself included. I've had those days where I was ready to quit way before I did, and this kind of gives you that extra little push. Most trekking poles are going to include a basket. This is to keep it from sinking down too far in the mud or in the snow. Usually snow baskets are really, really big around. You'll see them on ski poles. And they'll come with a carbide tip. These particular trekking poles have seen about almost 2,000 miles, and the carbide tips are brand new still. They don't really go anywhere. But this company, Lecky, has been around for a really long time, lifetime guarantee at any store that sells them. You know, investing in good gear will pay off in the end. It keeps you from rebuying things and having to replace things on your own. Well, that's about all I've got for you. Do we have any more questions, general or otherwise? All right. Well, thank you all for your patience. Again, my name's Colby. Good to have you all.
If you guys have any questions, you want to come back here looking into gear or have any questions putting the gear, want to be fitted for a pack or have questions how to be fitted for a shoe, stay after class and we'll be glad to help you one-on-one with any other questions you might have. And if you haven't signed up for that 10 Style 10 giveaway yet, it's up here on the iPad, just in your email. And like I said, we're drawing somebody that can show up to class today to enter. So one person's going to be lucky enough to win that 10. And that's about it. Thank you all.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, quick little work there.
Yep. Get broken downstairs.
I work for the SAD.